everybody that I've read, it seems they've come through this place.
So we talk about past fellows as having, been ghosts in the study. And so it's really nice that 3 of the people who I was working with in graduate school had been here. And also the work that I started with them, I continue to build on here.
From the day I entered academia, people used to talk about the center at Stanford. And I think it's the only place in academia where people refer to it on a first name basis and people know what you're talking about. So this has been a long, distinguished place. And I heard from many scholars that I admired over the course of the early parts of my career about how enriching it was to be at the center at Stanford.
There are a few ways in which 1 year at CASBS changes the way you approach your work and your research. Probably for me, the one that is most important and that I can fully appreciate now is that I now search for the broader questions with much more intensity. So we work in fairly specialized areas, but the big questions are the ones that are talked about here at CASBS.
So the cross-disciplinary context that the center offers is particularly useful in the sense that it takes one away from disciplinary dialogues or debates and encourages one to focus on ideas rather than the specifics of debates in the discipline in which one is embedded. So what are the larger ideas that emerge through one's work that one is trying to work to generate? And I think this was a particularly useful aspect of spending 9 months with scholars from other disciplines.
What I think is very interesting about the seminars, or it has been in my case at least, is that it's an opportunity to think about your research in a way that you usually don't think. So you only have half an hour and you have to present what you want to do in a way that excites people that are not necessarily working in that area. So it's an opportunity to think about your own work from a different perspective and then to get a reaction from other fellows that come from different areas that is not your usual crowd or the people that would usually give you background, and that turns out to be extremely useful and rich.
Each of the seminars, I got so much inspirations. I always find that I learn something new. Also, I appreciate not only the presenters talk, but also other fellows asking questions. And always it amazes me how much variations in people's thinking and how wide people think about a specific issues.
One interesting feature of the lunch is that nobody is checking his or her phone. And this is, first of all, very unusual in this day and age. It bears witness to the fact that people are very serious about interacting with one another, be it simply a sociable sort of interaction or a more substantial intellectual interaction. I found that the quality of both the human aspect and the intellectual aspect of lunch together really, really fascinating and extremely enjoyable.
Well, one of the nice things about the lunches is the fact that obviously you're getting great food and you're getting the opportunity to socialize, but also the fact that you have an opportunity to talk about topics and issues that are important for your research, and oftentimes in some very surprising ways. So my research is mainly ethnographic as well as archival. And one of the lunches early on, I just happened to be sitting next to one of our fellows who's a psychologist and also one of our fellows who's in communications. And they were talking about how they are using some of the new online techniques for data collection. So we decided at that moment that we would organize a seminar on that topic. And so we had that a couple months ago. And that just happened because we were sitting at lunch together. So there are a lot of those types of surprising encounters that happen at lunch.
And the most pleasurable thing is when those two things come together, when you spend many lunches after a colleague's given a seminar, reflecting on their work. When you go back to a colleague, or indeed they come back to you 2-3 weeks later and say, I've thought a little bit more about the seminar that you gave, and here are some more thoughts that I have for you. So those two things are great, both just practically in structuring a week, but they're wonderful in giving you the opportunity to really engage at a really deep level of collegiality and intellectual partnership with other fellows.
It's just the seminars and the lunch. There is nothing else really that you are supposed to do, which gives a lot of free time, and that's fantastic because that's what we don't have usually now where we are in our usual institutions. Our agendas are packed, and if you really have to or want to produce ideas and insight and be creative, you need the space to produce. I mean, you can't really produce if the space is full with staff. So that's fantastic because that has created reading groups, writing groups that have worked during these months that wouldn't have been there if we had had a full schedule, which is what we usually have in a typical institution. So I think that's a very important point of CASBS, the free time to be able to think and to take the time to talk to people and to read and to write in a way that is less constrained than it usually is in your institution.
I'd come up with a thought of an idea, and then it would be shot down pretty fast at lunch, and I'd say, you're right, you're right, and then I'd have to change it up. And so just that process, it's not always comfortable, right, to have to hear that, but it's way better hearing it 3 or 4 hours after you've come up with something as opposed to 3 months later. I was able to move much more quickly to get to a point of a valid research question by being here. The ability to have the camaraderie on a daily basis with these very smart people who I otherwise wouldn't have ever met, yes, transformative, really critically important in my intellectual development over this year.
I think 1 year at CASBS is necessarily transformative in many ways, many of which I don't think we are yet aware of. So I think many of the consequences of having been here for a whole year will unfold and will become visible in the years to come. I don't think I'm capable of fully grasping it at the moment.